All right, so I seen this clip on Instagram of Grant Mitt the other day, and I thought I just had to talk about it because I think it's a good clip. So let's play it, and then I'll get right into it.
I meet a lot of people ask me a ton of advice, and I travel all over the world. And the common denominator I always see in hyper successful people is when they find out you're doing something great, they light up. They're so excited and inspired. But the one common trait that I see in people that are stuck in the middle or at the bottom, regardless of where they came from, is they're always watching another man's pockets. They always have an evil eye to people that are having success. One of the greatest tests is having to cheer on people around you when you haven't won or became successful yet. This is the greatest challenge and test to your character. It's important It's important to have an abundance mindset and know that the world is lacking nothing. You could go out and make $1 billion tomorrow and it would affect basically nobody. There's so much opportunity, you just have to think big.
All right, so basically the whole point is jealous. I mean, when it comes to this, is that when you get really good at anything, you notice this right away, in that the people at the bottom and the people in the middle, their big problem, or one of the big problems they run into, is that they're always jealous and resentful of the people above them. And it's not, a lot of people will turn around and say, oh, what about this guy who cheated, or this guy who lied and made a bunch of money, or whatever. But that's not the point. The point is quite simple, in that, number one, most of the people at the top did it in a honorable, or at the very least a fair way. And the other point also there that is very important is that the reason that you are struggling is typically, not always, but overwhelmingly likely, it doesn't have anything to do with the other guy. It has to do with what you're doing. The reason you're not in good shape has nothing to do with the other guy, right? Whether the other guy is on steroids or has really good genetics or whatever, it's not affecting your performance. So why would you use that as an excuse? Yeah, maybe they're taking drugs or they have very good genetics. That might be true. Most of the time, it's just an excuse, though. That's the problem. The reason that the next guy is in a better financial position than you is not because he's cheating or he's doing something illegal or whatever. No, it's because he's smarter with his money and you're not. And then this is one of the best examples we see in society, is that rather than people just admit that they're wrong, they turn around and support things that brings people down to their level. And this is one of the big reasons why I think that, nowadays, especially in the West, we have a really big cost of living issue. And without getting too much into the weeds here and getting overly political, which I don't think you need to necessarily to make the point, but one of the big reasons for that is, number one, people can't take any responsibility for the bad decisions they've made, right? I mean, a great example of this is the boomers, right? The boomers can't admit that they left us in pretty bad shape, the younger generation, that is. But to be fair, on the flip side, the younger generation can't take any responsibility for the fact that they still overwhelmingly vote for the policies that led to the mess that we are in. And when they recognize these problems, their solution is oftentimes just to double down on the failed policies. So the solution is responsibility. Rather than laying blame, I mean, there's nothing stopping people from doing something different. There's nothing. And this is the again where it comes back to jealousy and resentment. When people are doing that kind of stuff, if you turn around and be like, okay, well, am I reacting in the way that I'm reacting because I'm jealous or resentful? If people just took a step back and did that when they're judging, when they're making these statements, things would be like, we could make so much progress. And again, going back to the main point here, when you look at the most successful people, do you know how little they care about other people? Like the people that are in the best shape physically, do you know how little they care about other people and how good a shape they're in? The people that are the most successful financially, do you know how little they care about the average Joe? Like, the thought rarely crosses their minds. But when you look at the average Joe, all he can think about is that, that the business owner is making more than him, and, we got to do something to stop him, and it's so unfair, and blah, 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 blah. And that is the problem. That is the big problem. Stop thinking about other people. Start thinking about what you can do to improve yourself. And again, this should go without saying. I've already brought it up, but it needs to be brought up because there's so many ignorant people out there. I am not saying that there isn't people who lie, cheated, and steal that got in the position that they're in. The point is, it's not as likely, it's not as prevalent as you think it is. And number two, even if you're right, the problem is that the people who have that mindset, they always force the pendulum to swing way further than it should. Right? They point out that, oh, this rich guy, he stole and he cheated to get to where he is, so we have to punish all the rich people. And then the problem is that the most productive people in society are the rich people, and you take everything they have, or way more than you should, and the average person still ends up worse off. And this is another thing that people don't seem to realize, is that when you look at success is always happens on a bell curve, right? The number one player on the team will contribute more than, it's just the square root produces half the value, right? Like if you have a company with 100 salespeople, roughly 10 of them will make half the sales. That's just how society is. And if we want to improve, we have to accept that. Because if we cripple the most productive people in society stagnates. And that's something that, again, people just don't seem to realize. And at the end of the day, it comes down entirely to a mindset shift. Right? Again, the caption he has right here is really all you need to think about. Jealous people do not win. And I would also add resentful people, because resentment and jealousy they're not the exact same, but they're definitely very, very similar. I would honestly probably switch the word jealous with resentment or resentful, because I think that's a better way to describe the problem that we are trying to point out here. And again, the problem with those people is their motivation typically comes from wanting to bring other people down to their level, rather than wanting to see other people brought up to the people at the top's level. And again, we see this time and time and time again, right? Talk to the average person out there. When the average person, if you take anyone who's in really good shape, again, I've seen this personally, right? People will make these, the weird comments and those kind of things. And again, they're typically saying that because they're jealous, because they're resentful. And again, some people are more obvious with their motivation than others. And again, the problem is again, like, if you can just say it and be honest, that's not a big problem. The problem is typically what people do. Their actions are, I want to bring you down to other people's level, rather down to the average person's level, rather than wanting to bring other people up to the top, right? And then that's where the problem is, because most people are lazy. Most people want to do just enough to get by. There's a lot of people that don't even do that, right? Talk to anyone who's managed, a moderate to large business. They can tell you this, and if they don't notice this, then I really don't have any respect for them, because even if you don't manage a business, if you work with enough people, you can see this, right? There's a good amount of people out there that, again, they will do the absolute bare minimum to get by. The amount of people that actually do more than is required of them is, in my estimations, you're looking at maybe 10-20% of the people. I would say probably 10 or 20% don't even do the bare minimum. And then you got that big mushy middle that does the bare minimum. And the only thing that's on their minds is, how do I do less to get the same outcome. Again, look at when another great example of this is, look at what happens when all of these, not all of them, but most of the time when these unions strike. What happens? What is the parallels? The parallels are, we want a raise, we want more time off, we want, again, better benefits. But we don't want to work more, we don't want to have to produce more, none of that stuff. Again, that is the problem, right? That is the problem. Again, if you can produce more, absolutely, you deserve a raise, you deserve more time off, etc., etc. But if you can't produce more, why should you get more? Again, that's the problem, that they're jealous and resentful. And again, that just comes back to the main problem here. So the people that are at the bottom and the middle, they're probably not going to get this. So again, if you want to be someone who's a high achiever, you have to adopt this mindset. In my opinion, it's something you have to do. If you want to be a high achiever, you have to do this. You have to do it. So anyway, that's what I wanted to talk about today. If you liked the video, please like, comment, subscribe, all that good stuff, and stay tuned for more.